No, I don't want you to be in progress.
Begin. I hope you can see the screen. If you can't, let me know. We respectfully acknowledge that statewide we are on the ancestral homelands of the indigenous nations that have inhabited these lands since time immemorial, including the Akchin, Akamela Odom, Apache, Colorado River, Fort Mojave, Gila River, Havasupai, Hopi, Wallapai, Navajo, Paiute, Pima, Peepash, Wet'suwet'en, Yaqui, and Yavapai peoples. Their traditional care and honoring of these lands allow us to be here today. And today we have a fabulous, fabulous program for you. So I know you're going to enjoy it. Here we go. And I'm going to focus in the beginning on some activism. As you all know, this is a time when voices count, when your activism is really important, when numbers make a difference. And it doesn't matter whether you're on the phone, if you're writing postcards, if you're emailing, if you're standing on a bridge, if you're walking up and down the street with a sign, whatever, or throwing rotten tomatoes at David Schweiker's door. It doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you're doing and you keep your foot on the gas, that's going to make a difference. And let me tell you about some of the things that are going on. I love this slide that I put together because whatever you do, whatever action you take, how small, how large, how much time it takes and energy, it is all part of the resistance, which is very important for us. These are just some examples of resistance around, and you can see the numbers make a huge difference. I'm going to focus on Save Our Schools, Arizona. It is an Arizona group. I am a retired teacher. I think that I spend hours a day trying to figure out what's going on with education. And I rely on Save Our Schools, Arizona, to let me know what exactly is happening and what I can do to help. These are the part of the $12 billion that the federal government is cutting from schools. So, for example, I'm in District 4 with Greg Stanton. He voted against those cuts, but the majority won. And so just in District 4, not Arizona, but just in District 4, schools are going to lose almost $36 million on top of the cuts that our state legislature are making to education. If you add all of these 9 districts together, that's what Arizona is losing for public education. Now, are vouchers losing money? Absolutely not. In fact, they are increasing, but public school education is being cut by billions. And here's some more news to make you just wince. The Trump administration has launched a partisan patriotic education coalition that includes the Department of Ed and more than 40 partner groups, all of which are closely aligned with the president's MAGA movement, including the Heritage Foundation, which oversaw Project 2025, Moms for Liberty, which has been designated as an anti-government extremist group, Turning Point USA, ALEC, the Goldwater Institute, and more, to create civics programming for public schools across the nation. Many of these organizations are involved in efforts to stop teaching civil rights material, oust school board members who believe in teaching social justice, ban books, and whitewash history lessons. Turning Point USA claimed to be more resolved than ever to advance God-centered, virtuous education for students. This extremist civics takeover is paired with a renewed push to open Turning Point USA chapters in schools across the United States, with Oklahoma and other state superintendents calling for a mandate that every high school in the state open one. You can check out the weekly education report that comes from SOS, Save Our Schools, for more information. But here's the rundown. The administration has already redirected $137 million from programs in Arizona for minority students to spend on this patriotic history and civics education. If you don't agree with that, this is where you can write your protest right here. Or just go to SOS Arizona and then you'll find out what to do. There's more. Get ready. All of this comes after Trump has cut billions in existing education grants that include civics, as well as the arts, literacy, and higher education. The Trump administration has taken extraordinary measures to dismantle and shutter the Department of Education over the past 9 months, laying off half of the department's staff and slashing funds for civil rights protection, teacher grants, special needs education, and the National Assessment for Educational Progress. The administration is dismantling the parts of the Department of Ed it dislikes while using it in new ways to promote their own preferred partisan ideology and goals. As Politico notes, it's the latest in a string of the administration's policy moves to influence the American education system, including withholding funding from universities and K-12 schools whose actions are deemed inconsistent with the administration's values. Education policy experts worry the initiative smacks of authoritarianism. The federal government is prohibited by law from any direction, supervision, or control over the curriculum in schools. But the Department of Ed says it will provide discretionary grants to schools that promote so-called patriotic education. Vouchers. 12 News' Craig Harris started vetting $124 million worth of expenses parents had racked up through empowerment scholarship accounts, AKA ESA accounts, AKA school vouchers, without any oversight. Here are some of the things he uncovered. Overall, the voucher program is expected to cost more than $1 billion of taxpayer money this school year, not the next 10 years, not nationwide, in Arizona this school year. And roughly 90,000 students are enrolled in the voucher program. The Arizona Department of Ed is not reviewing purchases under $2,000 that parents make with their school vouchers. So if you turn in a receipt for $19.99, it's not going to be reviewed by anybody. It's an automatic reimbursement from the school voucher system. And it's estimated that reviewed purchases over $2,000 totaled $600,000 going to improper purchases in this school year alone. Would you like to know what some of those are? Parents buying diamond rings, hotel and resort stays, Broadway tickets, maternity clothes, dog food, lingerie, new cars to teach driver's ed, and complete kitchen remodeling to teach culinary arts. That's where your tax dollars are going, not to the public schools. 2 Colorado, not Arizona, Colorado residents pleaded guilty to defrauding Arizona's voucher program of more than $100,000 by using fake birth certificates when they submitted applications to the voucher program. That could be true of any of the Arizona Family Voucher Program participants. They don't check birth certificates. ESA dollars are still being dispersed despite the clear lack of adequate performance standards, measurements for student success, and oversight to prevent fraud. Empowerment scholarship accounts, ESAs, have been termed and this is true, a taxpayer-funded black hole. Now, if you're as upset as I am, go to SOSAZ, that's, excuse me, Save Our Schools, Arizona, and use these bit email links that you can tell your elected officials all about this, or just sign up for their weekly report. It's a rage moment for me when I read it every week, because these expenses, this money, is everything that's being cut from public schools, where 80% or more of our students attend, and it's going to the 90,000 students whose parents are not having any oversight in what they're spending. So please go to sosarizona.org. Do your part. If it's an email, if it's just getting the weekly report and sharing it with your friends and neighbors, please do that. Now, there are a number of bonds and overrides on November 4th. Please do that. Please take part in that. This November, school districts across Arizona are running special elections for bonds, overrides, and budget increases. In many areas, the elections are mail only, meaning your ballot will come in the mail and you should return your ballot by October 28th to make sure it counts. If you want to, if you're not going to mail it in, you're going to walk it in, you can walk it in to a polling place. But if you're going to mail it and you mail it after October 28th, it may not get to where it needs to be. Because Arizona's local public schools are so dramatically underfunded, we're talking billions since 2008. They have not been fully funded since 2008. Because they're so dramatically underfunded, districts often have to ask voters to pass additional funding initiatives to fund the basics for students, like teacher salaries, bus drivers, computers, basic building maintenance, and more. And check with your local school district. Unfortunately, as in Kyrene, they're going to have to close 8 schools. Now, that means 8 communities are being cut out of a public place for meetings, for recreation, for classes, for education. Please vote yes on any bond or override in your area. You can contact your legislative district or your congressional district through the Maricopa County Democratic Party or the Arizona Democratic Party. And you don't need to write down stuff. It's so easy with Google. You just Google Maricopa County Democratic Party and it'll take you right to where you need to be, or Arizona Democratic Party. If you really want to have a good Rage Friday, make sure you tap into Secular AZ. Again, all you have to do is Google Secular AZ, and you can get the Friday noon speaker series. It'll get your blood boiling, but they always end with, what can you do about it? And it's usually an email or a letter or a phone call, something that you can do quickly in your bunny slippers to help separation of church and state. Again, and this is another group that we promote, civic engagement beyond voting. If you have not already become a member, CEBV, which is Civic Engagement Beyond Voting.us. Once the legislative session starts in January, you're going to want to be subscribing to their newsletter. Every Sunday or Saturday, I spend 2 to 3 hours of my day going on request to speak, because if there's a bill that's just absolutely horrendous, what you can do is take 30 seconds, do a request to speak, and then your number, your name, your number, and whatever comment you want to make is part of public record. So they introduced that bill into a committee, and let's say it's a horrible bill, but there are 300 people who said, hey, this is a good idea, and only 50 people who say it's a bad idea. That's what goes into the committee and helps them decide. Well, hopefully it helps them decide if they are if they have any integrity with their constituency, which I'm afraid to say some of them don't. But please, bottom line, make sure you subscribe to cebv.us. Then there's standinvisibleaz.org. And you can find out all kinds of places to go, signs to make. You can march, you can drive a car. They have car protests. You can stand on a bridge. You can throw rotten tomatoes. Well, no, not really, but you can stand and protest in front of offices and buildings. It's a lot of fun. Just figure out through standinvisibleaz.org what you want to do. There's a new one that I learned about, Rush Hour Resistance Rally. It's rhrr.us. And they have a lot of local things. You plug in your address and you find things that you can walk to or a short drive away that you can use for protest. And so here we go. We have, and I hope, John, that you are online now.
Yes, I am.
Oh, good, good. So let me give you a brief introduction. We've had voter choice Arizona on before, and if you don't know about it, if you're not sure what it is, you will know after today's program what it is. And it is gathering steam nationwide because it makes sense. And for voters who think, oh, well, what's my vote going to count? Doesn't make any difference. This will turn you around 180. So you can see what a difference a single vote can make. So our presenter today is John Thompson, or just JT, if you don't mind, John. Retired from a he retired from a Silicon Valley high-tech publications management career in 2007. Married since 1969, he and Felicia honeymooned in Sedona, and now are spending their retirement there volunteering with several nonprofits. JT also was elected to and served a full term on the Sedona City Council. JT's involvement with Voter Choice Arizona stems from his eagerness to see election reforms in Arizona that will be inclusive of independent and third-party candidates, open to all eligible voters, regardless of any party affiliation, immune to exorbitant campaign spending, yay, and negative messaging, and structured to deliver elected officials who truly represent the majority of their constituents. And I want to show you the next slide that I took from your mission statement, JT. And the mission statement is educating Arizona voters about how better ballots will improve elections, give them more voice and more choice, and lead to better outcomes for our state. Now, I know that there are a couple of people on our participants today who are madly making notes. Well, you don't need to madly make notes, and this is why. Our IT guru, Susie Thornton, is going to put on our Facebook account the link to our YouTube. So after she has made a YouTube, I don't know how this works, Susie, but once she's made the YouTube of today's program, she's going to post the link in our Blue Tuesday Forum Facebook account. You can click on it, and there are past ones too. So if you missed one, or you really wanted to find out or try to remember what somebody said in a previous program, all you have to do is go to Facebook to Blue Tuesday Forum, and you can click on the link. You can invite friends and families to do that too. So JT, you are on stage. You are being recorded, and we are delighted that you are here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Heydrich. I appreciate the invitation. and I'm looking forward to helping you pass what is obviously going to be a very, very big day for the world and our country with everything that else is going on. Pass that day with a little bit of talk about the future. So I'm going to share my screen here and hope I can do everything properly.
Yay.
So that popped in, I guess. And now you're seeing the big opening. And I'm going to see if I can change to presenter view so I have my notes. Do you still see just the main slide?
We're seeing your notes too, JD.
Oh, okay. Well, we're not going to need that then. I'll just go with the slideshow. Okay. Well, thank you again for the introduction and for the summary of Voter Choice Arizona. We are a nonprofit, so if you want to support us at some point financially, it's not going to hit your taxes. And we are dedicated to those things that were in that list, not the least of which is just overall getting a better voting experience and a better way to choose our leaders. So I know you've got two speakers that you want to hear from after me, new candidates, which is kind of exciting already. So I'm going to try and zip through this pretty quickly. I know we have a pretty well-informed audience, but stop me if I go too fast. Usually I take too long, but I'll try not to do that. All right, so we're going to look at the election process in terms of its three different stages: the ballot qualification stage, where people get their petitions and get on the ballot, and then the primary election and the general election. And these colored circles are on most of my slides, which will help us remember where we are so we don't get lost. So for the ballot qualification problem that we see is that candidates are not treated equally. Independents must obtain up to 6 times more signatures to qualify for the ballot, and those must come from other independents. That means it's very unlikely that independents are going to be showing up on the ballot or in the general election, and because they're not permitted to be on the primary elections. Our system of elections has basically 2 primary elections, one for the Democratic Party and one for the Republican Party. And so it's very difficult for anyone other than those affiliated with those parties to get a chance to play in the primary, so to speak. So from that problem, we go to a pretty simple solution, we think, which is to equalize the ballot signature requirements and allow all candidates to participate in primary elections. So instead of having the two primaries, one for Republicans and one for Democrats, there would be one primary election, and it would be for anyone regardless of party affiliation. And that's going to be a long ballot maybe, but we have ways to deal with that. So we move on to the primary election. And I'm sure many of you will agree with this. But I'm sure you've all experienced that districts are not competitive. Independents are largely excluded from the primary process. They have to go through some steps, basically signing up with a party in order to be included. And we have 25 of 30 districts in the state that are considered safe due to the primary process. I think on last count, we had 12 that were considered safe for Democrats and 13 that were safe for Republicans. The result of that is a tiny ultra-partisan electorate determines the winners of 80% of our political contests. So here's just an example that you may, most of us probably will remember the 2016 primary. On the Republican side, which are the left 2 columns of this chart, Andy Biggs very, very narrowly defeated Christina Jones, and therefore was the Republican that went forward to the general election. But because, as you can see from just looking at the total number of voters in the primary, this is a very unbalanced, safe district for Republicans. It was just sailing through. It would have been very difficult for the Democratic candidate to defeat Andy Biggs, since he got more votes than were the Democrats even cast in the primary, as an example. As a result of that, our calculation says that only 8% of all voters who participated in this general election determined the winner. So that's one main problem. Now, let's take a look at the solution for the primary election that we are promoting. We would promote a top 5 open primary election. The top 5 being the result that we're aiming for. So all candidates are on the same ballot for the primary election. All voters have 1 vote for each seat, and the top 5 advance. And there are a lot of people who debate the right number of people to advance from this kind of a process. But we can get into that a little bit if that's a question for you. We have some more time. But that's what we're proposing to go into the general election. Now, at the general election stage, with our current process, basically you pick your poison. There's 2 possibilities. One will be that there's 2 candidates on the general election, a Republican and a Democrat. We see that just about all the time. But that poison, as we feel, is often leads to people having to choose the lesser of 2 evils. Even people from the party, one of the main 2 parties who are represented by someone on that ballot, it may not have been their first choice during the primary. So they are choosing a candidate from their party that was not someone that they really wanted. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is if an independent candidate, or maybe someone who was a Democrat or a Republican and served before, but chose not to run again on their party's ticket and run as an independent, that's maybe a little easier for them to get on the ballot. You have problems with vote splitting and the spoiler effect. And so one way or the other, we have a problem when we get to our general election. And here's a slide just to show a reminder about what the vote splitting process is and the spoiler effect. There's 2 different elections here in 2000. We probably all remember that George Bush very, very narrowly defeated Al Gore. And because there was an independent candidate on the ballot that many believe, or most believe, would have resulted in more votes for Al Gore than George Bush, we may have had a different outcome. Similarly, the Republicans potentially suffered a defeat that they might not have had otherwise because of Ross Perot's appearance as a spoiler in that election. Okay, so the general election solution that we believe in is ranked choice voting, where we will not be voting for just one or the other of 2 candidates, or trying to avoid a spoiler, but that we will have 5 candidates on the ballot, the top 5 vote getters from the open primary election. And we'll have a way to choose from them that really gets to what our preference is and allows us to pick a majority winner in the end, not just a plurality winner. This is what a ballot, something about like what a ballot might look like. It's taken from a representative to Congress actual ballot where there are two Democrats and two Republicans that would normally get elected. But what would happen here is there would be a fifth candidate here. It could be multiple Democrats, it could be multiple Republicans, or both, and it could be an independent or a third party candidate, Green Party or another third party candidate. But they would be the top five that advanced from winning the primary election plurality. And what we would do on this ballot is you would just go down one after the other and pick your first, second, third, fourth, and fifth choice. You can just pick a first choice if that's all you want to do, in which case this ballot works pretty much like the ballots that you have now. But you have an opportunity to pick your second, third, and fourth, and fifth choices by just filling in the appropriate boxes. And it's not difficult to check your ballot at the end, because you should have one box checked in each column and one box checked in each row, and you will have not made any mistakes on your ballot. It's a fairly simple process. So what does the ballot do with all of that information? Well, let's take a look. So here's a sample, a completely hypothetical sample, and the vote in the general election requires 50% plus one, so that's a majority, and this is an example of what a first round might look like for those five candidates. Couple leading the pack, maybe this are your traditional Democrat and Republican candidates, and then you have some others down here that did not get as much as them. So what we do, since none of the five candidates met that 50% plus one criteria, we go to another round. But instead of having to have a runoff election, the election is already there right in the ballots, because people chose their second, third, and fourth choice. So what we do is we throw out the lowest candidate, which in this case is a little hard to see, Eaton versus Davis, but assuming Eaton got the least votes of anyone, we throw out that person and just run a re-election virtually with the ballots on the remaining four. And the way we do that is we take all of Eaton's votes and that were first place votes, and we look at those ballots for the second place vote in each case, and we put them in the appropriate lists. So here's what a round two might look like, where the yellow votes at the end of the tip of each vote here are Eaton's votes spread out over where those voters indicated their second choices were. And we can actually see there's a little change in the leader here. Still no 50%, so we go to another round, and what we do is we throw out Davis and put Davis's votes at the end of the other three. And this is maybe what happens in this particular case. Baker is extending her lead by having more of Davis's votes than Allen or Cooper got. And then finally, we throw out Cooper, and we have the final tally, which is because there's only two, and they have gained the votes of the other candidates as they've been eliminated. It's inevitable that you're going to have a 50% plus one at an absolute minimum. And if this were the typical Democrat and Republican, maybe you can argue that the outcome is the same, but the outcome is not the same if there had been a spoiler in there And one of these had been a spoiler that was getting lots of votes and was not eliminated until the very end. All right. So to begin in a summary here, ranked choice voting is the fastest growing election reform in the nation. This is not something that we are making up. Ranked choice voting has been used for over 100 years, and it's used in many states right now, including at some municipal levels where they just have nonpartisan voting, and it works very well there as well. But as you can see here, last year, 14 million Americans used RCV for their voting. And the experience that we have found by polling people afterwards is that they are quite happy with it. There are very few people who stubbornly believe that it's not a good way to go. Most people believe that it's very effective, and they like the idea of being able to keep their ballot alive, even if their candidate doesn't go on. And it's the municipal elections, as I mentioned, is another place where it's possible. In fact, the real push for Voter Choice Arizona as an organization this year is with seeing what we can do at the municipal level so that more people get experience with it. Because it doesn't look likely that we will have something on the ballot for next fall. But our eventual goal is final 5 voting statewide. And we'll be around until we can achieve that. So in order to do that, we need help, and we're doing these little presentations and hope for getting as many people involved as possible. Here are some ideas for you. The most important thing you can do is to sign up as a supporter on the sign-in sheet that's going around. Well, this is a virtual meeting, so I'm going to put a link in the chat when I'm finished here that you can go to. It's a spreadsheet that's a shareable spreadsheet. You can just put your information there. We would love to have you let us know that you attended, if nothing else, but you also have an opportunity to say what your particular interests are, to say if there's some particular kind of thing that you would like to sign up for, whether you'd just like someone to contact you later for other possibilities. But those possibilities might include inviting myself or others. We have a whole speaker bureau to present to your church group locally or your book club or whatever organization you have. Maybe host a house party, volunteer to do some phone banking or other things for us when the time comes. Check out our website, like and share our posts. And of course, we always like to have some help with a donation. I mentioned we're a nonprofit. We have only one paid staff member, and everyone else is volunteer. So I believe that takes us to the end. Yes, it does. If there's some time, Dr. Heydrich, for questions, I'll be happy to do the best I can.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll put my information in the chat. There'll be 3 things in there. There'll be the sign-up sheet that I mentioned. There'll be some my personal information. If you'd just like to reach me, you don't want to get involved with another group, that's fine. I'd love to hear from you. And then I've forgotten what the third one is, but it's also extremely important. Oh, the slide. People do ask us for the slide deck. We are not sharing our slide deck at this point, but there is a sheet, a single page sheet that has the main points, and there's a link to that as well. So that's what the information will be as soon as I'm logged off here.
Okay,
All
no,
right.
thank you very much, JT. And the first time I heard about ranked choice voting, it just made so much sense, because going back to that 5 candidate example that you gave us, if people had voted for number 3, 4, or 5, they would have been out of luck. None of their none of their wishes would have been taken care of. But a lot of times in primaries where there are a lot of people, I think, okay, I really want this one, but I wouldn't be unhappy if so-and-so won. And so that's where my voice is so strong. I'm not just thrown out because I chose this person instead of the other four, but I still have a voice in who the final one. So it does make makes a lot of difference, a lot of sense. And thank you for explaining it so well today.
Well, thank you.
We do have some time, about 4 minutes for questions. If someone has a question and you know how to raise your hand, do that. If you don't know how to raise your hand, just type the question in chat or say, I have a question and put your name. That'd be fine. Allison Jackson has a question.
Thanks. I heard this presentation a couple of weeks ago too at a social justice resource fair. And my question is, let's say, like Janie said, her example was, oh, there is a second person on the ballot that you wouldn't mind, promoting them. But what if there's somebody on the ballot that you actually absolutely could not stand to have, right? And so out of the 5, maybe you only vote for 3. How does that impact the results, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
My recommendation would be to look at that ballot both directions. So you start by going from the person you would most like to win and the second choice, and then maybe you don't really have a lot of preferences on 3 or 4, but boy, you sure don't want number 5. That's where I would say, look at it from the bottom up and say, how important is it for you to register that person as a number 5 vote? Is it important enough that you would go ahead and rank 3 and 4 in some order based on whatever? Find some reason, and just go ahead and rank them that way. Ideally, you'd get into the ballot box, and because it's into this ballot box, into the voting booth, and with only 5 candidates and the knowledge that you're going to be able to support them and keep your ballot alive, you'll know a little bit about all of them. And so the 1 or the 2 that you really don't want to see do well, just get them down at the end. If you don't have time to review anything and you have no idea who the people are and you're just doing your voting and you just put your number 1 person, it's no different basically than what people are doing now, except that there are those 4 other people who still have some chance to win. Whereas in our current system, they lost that chance at the primary level. You see what I'm saying? And so that's why we think we're doing this presentation covering all 3 stages of the election process, because we're saying that unless we do some good work on each of these, we won't really get the benefit of any of them, and or the full benefit of any of them. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, because I would have left the ones that I didn't want, I would have left them blank. But now I hear you say, actually, you really want to make sure that like your 5th choice is really indicated as like, no way. Okay, so thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, another way of thinking about it is if you just voted for number 1 and number 2, you are not giving 3 and 4 a chance to beat number 5. And since you don't want 5 to win, give them some choice,
Okay.
Give them some chance.
Okay.
Even if you're not sure which order to put them in.
Okay, thank you.
And that to me represents such a strong voice in elections, that you're not only saying, hey, these are okay, definitely not this one. Whereas today you can't do that. JT, thank you again so much.
Sure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. All right. I know Terry is here. Dr. Ruiz, Teresa Leyba Ruiz, was raised in South Phoenix and attended public schools in the Roosevelt School District and Phoenix Union High School District. Her parents worked hard to make sure their children understood the value of an education and pushed them to keep reaching for their dreams. As a first-generation college student, it was not always an easy path, but the encouragement from her parents never wavered. Teresa, or Terry, had a dream of becoming a math teacher because she knew she wanted to make a difference in the lives of students in her community of South Phoenix. She earned degrees from ASU and NAU, which led to a career teaching math in public schools at the middle school, high school, and college levels. She was making a difference in the lives of her students, but wanted to have a larger impact. So she earned a doctoral degree from ASU, which gave her the credentials to pursue more opportunities. Terry was honored to complete her career of service in education as the 8th president of Glendale Community College. Yay. Terry feels that now is the moment to put her experience to use as the next superintendent of public instruction. She believes deeply in the power of education to uplift and change a person's life. When more people reach for their dreams, families and communities are strengthened. Arizona will be prosperous, safe, and strong when children and adults are supported and having opportunities to continue learning. She will strengthen the pipeline of learning throughout the K-12 system and beyond, so Arizona will be a strong and economically vibrant place for everyone. It is my delight to introduce you, and thank you very much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much, Janie. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you for having me here. It's nice to see friends. I want to also thank Kathy Piner, who I believe is here as well. Kathy has been doing a wonderful job for me, helping to collect signatures. So just wanted to say thank you, Kathy, publicly. It's an honor to be with you this afternoon. And that was a wonderful introduction. So yes, I am a 35-year career educator, and I am after Tom Horn's job. I want to be the next state superintendent of public instruction because we need to put an educator back into this incredibly important role. Someone who's going to advocate for education, someone who understands what it's like to be in the classroom, and someone who has led a very large organization. As the president at Glendale Community College, GCC is one of the largest 5 colleges in the state of Arizona. So I know how to lead a large institution. In fact, GCC is larger than the Arizona Department of Education. And I love that Janie provided so much information earlier about, this billion-dollar boondoggle that we're facing in Arizona and some of the just the ridiculous waste and fraud and abuse of our taxpayer dollars. So a little bit more about this background and why I've decided to enter into this race, which was never ever on my radar. So after I retired from GCC, as a first generation college student, and I knew that I was making a difference in the lives of my students in the classroom. My 25 years I taught in South Phoenix at the middle school, at the school I graduated from in the Roosevelt District, and then at South Mountain High School and at South Mountain Community College. And as a first generation college student who was really pushed and encouraged by my parents, I knew that I wanted to make a difference in the lives of the students in my community. And for 25 years, I did that. And I have students that are now doctors and teachers themselves and lawyers and nurses and just having students who have careers in great, technical areas. And that's the power of public education. That's why I'm fighting so hard for this. And along the way, I went back to school to earn that doctoral degree from ASU so that I could have the credentials necessary to become a college president. And when I finished my career at GCC after serving for 6 years as the president there, I went on and I thought, okay, I still have so much more to give and to do. So I went to work for an education nonprofit statewide called Education Forward Arizona, where I served as a senior vice president, chief advocacy and programs officer. And it was there that I really started to pay attention because that was my job, to follow the data for K-12, follow the legislation, great legislation that was being introduced but wasn't being heard simply because there was a D behind the legislator's name, and bad legislation moving forward. And true, honestly, I got very angry. And listening to the hateful rhetoric coming out of the current superintendent's office, the attack on our teachers, the attacks on our students, the suing of schools. The current superintendent is actively suing schools and our students, and all of it just reached this boiling point. And I thought, who's I looked around and who's going to save us? Who's going to speak for public education? Who's acting as the shield to protect our students and our educators? And I realized it's not the current superintendent. And again, I got very angry and said, I've had a beautiful 35-year career. My career can't be harmed. This isn't a stepping stone to some other office. I'm going to enter this race. I want to serve as the shield. I want to be there to advocate for public education every single day at the state capitol, speaking against bad bills, speaking in favor of good bills. And every time there's a education subcommittee from the Senate or the House, I will be there and I will advocate. I will build relationships so that our students are no longer being harmed. So, I figured, well, I know this is not a stepping stone. I have nothing to lose, but really believe that Arizona has everything to gain when we put an educator back into this important role. And I am so honored to share that former superintendent Kathy Hoffman has endorsed me in my campaign. And that means so much because she's been, the only educator we've had in Arizona serving in this role. And to know that she's going to support me is just means so much. In addition, I want to give a big shout out to Senator Analise Ortiz. If you don't follow her on TikTok, please do, because we just made this great TikTok over the weekend, and she's also endorsed my campaign, as has our newest Congresswoman, Adelita Grijalva. What this says to me is that people know me, they know my history, they know my experience and credentials, and are ready to stand behind me so that we can make a difference in Arizona. Janie highlighted some just terrible statistics and terrible waste, fraud, and abuse of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And what I commit to doing on day one. Janie talked about those 2,000, any expense under $2,000 that gets automatically approved. And that calculator is still ongoing. In the last 10 months, $124 million have been spent, automatically approved. And of course, current superintendent says he's going to go back and audit it later and claw back those dollars. That's not going to happen. I think that's just a fantasy. He says they're in the process of clawing back $600,000. By the way, that's less than 0.5%. Math nerd here. That's less than 0.5% of the 124 million that's already been spent. So it's just fantasy talk. We would never allow any type of automatic approval. This is our hard-earned taxpayer dollars that we need to safeguard. And so we would have systems in place. There's always a solution here, whether it's a technology solution or whether it's repurposing staff when there's a heavy period in the beginning, when a lot of receipts are coming through, then let's repurpose staff to audit them so that we're not automatically wasting taxpayer dollars. So that's the one thing we would do right away. The other thing we would do in this office, the other thing I would do with the team is all lawsuits against our state schools, all lawsuits would go away. And you might be wondering, what is he suing? Why is he suing schools? Well, he's actively suing schools that offer dual language programs. So think about, in the school district that you're in, does your school offer a dual language program? And if they do, I would encourage you to ask for a tour. This is an amazing academic push for our students. This is not only helping students become proficient in English, but this is helping English only students become proficient in another language. And I have seen examples of, in Flagstaff, there's it's a trilingual school, so Spanish and Dene. And I saw a fourth grade class being taught in Dene on Mesoamerican cultures. It was incredible. I saw a fifth grade Spanish class, or fifth grade math class being taught in Spanish. So the academic rigor combined with just improving our students' ability to speak and be aware of other cultures is so inspiring. And yet, current superintendent is suing these schools. So day one, those lawsuits go away. We put some measures in place to try to get an understanding around the ESA vouchers. Why did it take an investigative reporter for us to be aware of how our taxpayer dollars are being used? There's a technology solution here. We would make a dashboard so that we would be able to know where's our money being spent. One of the things that we don't know about the ESA vouchers is, where are our students going to school? How many are going to a private school? How many are homeschooled? How many are in a micro school? And do they cycle back into public schools at some point? We don't know this information, and I feel we have a constitutional responsibility to ensure that our children are being educated. And right now we don't know where 10% of the students are going. Remember, only 10% of the students are using these vouchers. 90% of our students in Arizona, over 1 million students, are using public education, and they're suffering right now. This boondoggle is just siphoning money away. And it's affecting, while we're having to close schools, low teacher salary. Why are parents given a long list of supplies to buy when school starts? And then, of course, not all parents can buy that. So then teachers put out these wish lists of supplies that they need. We're not funding our schools, and we haven't been for 40, 50 years. Consumer Reports just ranked Arizona 50th in the nation. 50th, last, bottom. And when asked, one of the legislators actually said, "No, I'm not embarrassed that Arizona's last." That's a problem. We need to flip this legislature so that we can put responsible people in policy-making positions so that they can fund education at the level it needs to be. So all of this, is why I am running. We need an educator. The politicians have made a mess of things. So let's put an educator back into this important role and advocate and support public education at the level it should be. One of the things you'll hear me say a lot is that education is economic development. And if we want to have a strong and thriving Arizona, then we must have a strong and thriving education system. And being last in the nation is not the way to do that. And I know that we have many vacancies around the state of Arizona in high-tech areas, just vacancies in all sectors. And yet our pipeline is not filled with students prepared to step into these roles. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm here for the long haul. Put me in this role. So here's how you can help me. We'll put my website in the chat. I need your help. Spread the word. Share my name, have people sign my petition. Please sign my petition to get me on the ballot. We're not at ranked choice voting yet, so we're in the same old system. So I need to get on that ballot. I need to be elected into this position. And just Democrats alone, we can't win with just Democrats. And so we're reaching out to independents. And as I travel the state, we're also talking to Republican voters who are just as angry, who say, "Well, Terry, I can't sign your petition, but I'm going to vote for you," because they know they want something better for their children, their grandchildren, for the state of Arizona. And you can help me by doing this. Sign my petition. If you have it in you to make a $10 or $20 donation to help support the campaign as we travel the state so that we can support education together, I'm greatly appreciative. We have to do this together. This is not something that I can do alone or my team can do with me. It's going to take all of us. And, this is what happens when you make a middle school math teacher angry. Next thing you know, I'm running for office because I could no longer stand to see what's happening to public education. So join me in this important fight, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
Terry, thank you for being our guest today. And what I want to say really underscores what you just said, that there are many of us who have a tremendous passion for public education and know that that's the cornerstone of democracy. But to have someone running for a position, as you said, to be the shield for public education, not only with this tremendous passion, but the background that you have from K through university and understanding not just the education and curriculum and pedagogy part, but the business end too. So that whatever you say you will do for public education, you can, because you have the administrative background for that. And we can't say that enough times. So Terry, thank you so much for being our guest. We probably have time.
I think I just lost her.
Yeah, we do have time for one or two questions if someone has a question. Uh, Kathy Piner, did you have a question?
Kathy, you're on mute.
Linda Ambrose here. While we're waiting for Kathy, I wanted to ask you real quick, Terry, how do we get to your petitions and how could we get some petitions to take to others?
Thank you. So the equal link is on my website and it's in the chat now at drreese4arizona.com. But if you'd like petitions of the paper petitions, we could email that to you. And then, or you can help direct people to the equal, but we're happy to send you
Great.
a copy or we can meet. We're all over the valley too. So maybe we'll connect at one of our local places. Next week, actually, we're going to be in Southern Arizona the whole week. So if you'd like a paper petition, probably easiest just to email it to you. And Christy,
Okay.
my campaign manager, is on with us right now. So I'll get.
And I
Christy,
see you
just
in
put our
chat,
phone number
so
in.
I will
sorry.
get that at least. Thanks so much.
Thank
Best
you.
wishes.
Thank you.
I'm really glad to see Terry today, and I have used the paper petitions and I take them to every Democratic group gathering that I've been to. And I've been able to get lots of signatures that way, both in Maricopa County and in Yavapai County. So keep going.
Thank you, Kathy.
Terry, I have a personal question to ask of you. When you were at South Mountain High School, do you remember teaching with Frank Bing?
Yes.
That was my husband.
Really?
So when I saw that you taught at Phoenix Union High School, I thought, oh my gosh, I know he knew you.
Wow, I haven't heard his name in forever. Wow, what a small world, right? That's the power of deep networks and deep roots and
Absolutely. Well, I hope the deep networking statewide helps you a lot. And again, thank you so much for being our speaker today. And Christy has put in an email specifically for the petitions, and Susie has put in your website. And it's easy to just Google if you can't remember any of that. Just put Ruiz, Superintendent for Public Instruction. It'll get you to any site you want to go to.
And Nadine asked a question in chat. I'm happy to answer that. Kimberly Yee, the current treasurer of our state, is primarying Tom Horn. And the reason why she's primarying him is so Tom Horn actually said no. He actually did something good. He said no to the $16,000 cello. That angered the Freedom Caucus. The Freedom Caucus said, fine, we're going to find someone to primary you. And they found Kimberly Yee. She has designs on being a governor, but there's not a path in this next late race. So this is a holding pattern for her. So yes, she's going to primary Tom Horn. And if she wins, I think she'll have to go far right swing far conservative to win that, and then she's going to try to come back this way. I don't know that she's not an educator, and we're going to zero in on that. And this is not, she doesn't care about kids. She cares about a holding place for her next political move. So I'm ready for her as well. So give me either one of them, and I'll take either of them on because one, I'm not afraid. I taught high school math, so I'm not afraid, and I have nothing to lose here. But I'm ready to every day fight for our kids.
Well, and as I said before, there's no one else that could come up with your passion and your administrative and public school experience. So thank you again for
Thank
being
you.
our guest today, Terry.
Thanks, Janie. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm hoping that that Analise Ortiz is on, or that someone from her office is on. Yes, no. She was going to be our next speaker. And if she doesn't show up, let me just close by saying that you need to Google Analise Ortiz. You can go to her website or you can just Google. And this is what has happened. Let me give you a little bit of her background. She didn't just pop up and decide to run. Analise Ortiz is a born and raised Arizonan and a Maryvale resident. She grew up in a family of 6 kids with parents who were both educators and taught them the importance of taking care of their community. She graduated summa cum laude from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at ASU and went on to become an investigative reporter. So she knows what she's doing. After uncovering government corruption and exposing harmful legislation, she realized she wanted to create policy, not just report about it. So she began working at the ACLU, where she championed criminal justice reform and federal immigration reform. She ran for the Arizona House of Reps in 2022 because she was tired of elected leaders forgetting they work for the people. Representative Ortiz negotiated historic levels of investment into affordable housing and homeless services. She held town halls and events to connect with the community. And when a corporation threatened to evict senior citizens from a housing complex in Maryvale, she made sure that the corporation committed to assisting people with finding a new place to live and paying their moving costs. Now, I asked her today to come to share a horrific story about her championing families and school children. When she found out that ICE was going to be arresting parents outside of one of the elementary schools, she went on her social media to let people know that that was going to happen. There was an elementary school boy whose parents were arrested in front of him. The ICE agent escorted him to the fenced off area in the school. And so when school was over, he had no one to come home to. He had basically no home. This is the kind of situation that Analise Ortiz is dealing with, but you'd think this is a wonderful story of her championing and advocacy for families, correct? No. Warren Peterson in the state legislature has decided to sanction Ortiz, taking her off of any committees that she is on, closing her office, taking away her staff. And that's the story that I wanted her to share with you. So I will give her one more opportunity, a shout out. Analise, are you online or someone from your staff online?
I just texted her, and I texted her the link, so I'm hoping she'll be able to to jump on and
Thanks, Terry,
mhm.
because I'd love for you to hear this horrific story from her lips. And it's just, I mean, since November, we've been hearing stories that are just unconscionable. I mean, we can't imagine that things like this are happening in our country. And to the families and communities that we value. I mean, of course, we value all of them. So all of them in have become vulnerable.
Janie, I think she just logged in.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Oh gosh, let me stop my share.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I told part of your story, but there's nothing like having the person. I don't want to call it the horse's mouth because that doesn't sound right. But
Well-
thank you so much, first of all, for your advocacy, for your championing, and for just holding up under this horrendous sanctioning. So please, I
Yes.
heard your bio. Tell us about.
I will, and I'm so sorry. There was a mix-up with my assistant, and my calendar got mixed up, and so I'm only able to stay on for about 5 minutes. I'm really, really sorry. But yes, I don't know where you want me to start. There's been a lot going on, but I definitely want to first and foremost thank you all for your support and your continued advocacy in the face of just absolute authoritarianism that we are seeing, not only from the Trump administration, but trickling down here to the local level. So as Janie had mentioned about, what the Republicans are trying to do for me or to me, I should really want to just emphasize that the important thing to remember is that I simply reshared a post that ICE was outside of an elementary school, right? And we really want to, hold on. Am I still there? Can you hear me? They were outside of an elementary school, and I am someone who fundamentally believes that children should be able to learn in safe and peaceful environments. And the fact that they have now blown this out of proportion to really chill free speech is what should really concern all of us. The Republicans are threatening if they are not able to expel me, which they will not be able to because they just won't have the votes. They want to lock me out of the Senate and take away my office, my assistant, and my parking spot, which all of those things belong to the people of LD24. So they are trying to disenfranchise my community, and it's just so absolutely wrong. So I really want people, though, to remember that this is about so much more than me and one legislator. This is about an attack on free speech. It's about the Republicans wanting secret police operations to happen. And they want us to be afraid of talking to our neighbors about what we are seeing. And as Terry just put in the chat, and thank you, Terry, as well, for letting me know that I was missing from this very important call. They are doing this while another sitting legislator, Representative John Gillette, called for the execution of a Democratic member of Congress. There has been crickets from the GOP leadership about his incitement to actual violence against a member of Congress. So these are really, really scary times that we are in, but we cannot stop using our voices and fighting for our country that we know is a country that promises people freedom. It promises people an opportunity to achieve the American dream, to come here and achieve a pathway to citizenship. And everything he is doing is flying in the face of those promises that have been at the root of our values as a country for the past 250 years. So I will stop there, and I'm happy to take one or two questions before I have to run.
Analise, could you review the story of what got you the sanctions, the incident with ICE at the elementary school?
Yes. And before I continue, just for my knowledge, is this call being recorded or published anywhere other than for the participants on the call?
Yes, but we can stop the recording if you want.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's just for
Okay.
my knowledge. So the okay, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the comments in the chat. So I simply reshared information. There was no identifying information. There was no photographs of anyone. It was just a simple alert that someone else had posted on Instagram that ICE had been seen outside of an elementary school in South Phoenix. And I reshared that to my Instagram story, which is something that a lot of people do, right? We've seen a lot of elected officials, a lot of community advocates sharing this information so that we can simply be aware of what's happening in our communities, especially when we're talking about a sensitive location like a school. I think any parent, teacher, or community member who hears that there are masked armed men on campus is going to want information about what is happening, especially since these individuals who could be from a federal agency or they could be someone impersonating law enforcement. We've seen that happen as well. They are wearing masks and they are not identifying themselves. They are wearing vests that just say police or ICE. They do not say what agency they are actually with. They don't have a badge number like your local police officer is required to have, the badge number, their last name. And they are not answering questions when people who are witnessing this happen are asking, who are you? What agency are you with? Why are you here? Do you have a warrant? They are not answering questions. And so it's fundamental to our right as American citizens that we are able to document law enforcement activity. There are many Supreme Court cases that show the precedent that it is lawful to record from a safe distance when a law enforcement interaction is going on. And it's also lawful to report about what you are seeing. In the same way that we have, the Waze app, which lets people know about speeding traps. You go on Nextdoor at any time of the day and you'll see people posting about police helicopters that are roaming ahead or, wondering why there's cops outside of a certain store or location. Those kind of posts on social media are 110% protected speech by the First Amendment. So this targeting is an absolute political attack, and it is an absolute escalation of the lengths the Republicans are willing to go to shut down their opposition, the political people that just have different political opinions than them, but also the piece about them wanting these operations to happen in secret is just so scary. I mean, I'm getting calls into my office from people who are saying that their loved one was picked up by ICE and they cannot find them. Think about how terrifying that is. There's a website, a government sanctioned website where you can go to see if your loved one is in a certain detention facility, and people are saying we can't even find them on that website. And so if those people are able to see some information, okay, there was an ICE raid at my loved one's place of employment. They must have been taken into custody. That could maybe help bring them some reassurance if their loved one doesn't come home at night and they also can't find them in this government database. So when you hear people say that people are being disappeared, it is very true. That is what is happening. You have loved ones who come home and their loved one does not come home and they cannot find them in the only government database that is tracking people, which is the locator.ice.gov. So this is just, a terrifying moment that we're in, an authoritarian moment, and we have to keep the humanity centered because the Republicans want to take the humanity out of this.
This is something out of a movie or, or Russia or some other country. And I mean, it's not anything that any of us have personally had to deal with before. And I mean, I think everybody on this program right now, the participants, have empathy for any vulnerable community. Well, and that's the basis of our character. Yes, but these are not just vulnerable communities that are being attacked. There are, people who are citizens who've lived here for 40 years, but they're just not Trumpsters. So oh gosh. Well, continue doing what you're doing. And the
Thank
first
you.
part of this program was about resistance. If there are emails, can we do that? What can we do as individuals to support?
Yes. So thank you for asking. And if you would like to take action, you can email the Republican senators. You can find all of their emails at azleg.gov/member roster, if anyone's able to put that in the chat. There's 3 key players here, but all of the Republican senators should be contacted if you're able. The first big player is President Warren Peterson, who has taken it a step further by actually calling for the Department of Justice to bring federal obstruction of justice charges against me, again, for simply resharing an Instagram post about publicly available information. It's just absolutely abhorrent, but the way the Department of Justice is being weaponized to go after Trump's opponents, there is a very real possibility that federal charges could happen. So emails to President Warren Peterson. Jake Hoffman is the one leading the ethics complaint, although almost all of the Senate Republicans signed on to the ethics complaint calling for my expulsion. And then the final person is Shauna Bolick, who is the chair of the ethics committee. And she will be the one kind of setting the hearing and everything, which we expect, if it does happen, it will be closer to January when the legislative session begins. So emails to those 3 key players or any other senator that you can reach out to really would mean a lot to me. Nadine asks in the comments, what is your recourse? Can you actually stop them from closing you out of your office? I cannot. The way the Senate rules are set up, President Peterson could lock me out of the Senate and remove my office and my assistant tomorrow, just deciding he wants to. An expulsion is what takes a 2/3 vote of the body, and they won't have those numbers with the way the Senate is so close, because every election matters, every seat matters. And when it comes to, how could we fight back against the potential they lock me out of the office? Really, the only thing we could do is shame them, right? And I'm preparing kind of ideas of what we could do, whether it's opening an office just across the street or setting up an office in the lobby of the Senate, right? The only thing they cannot take away from me and the people of Maryvale and Glendale is my vote on the floor. And if they magically were able to expel me, they would need to replace me with another Democrat per statute. So right now, the biggest thing is to just call attention to what's going on and to try to shame them for these complete political attack and these complete anti-democratic measures. And I am running for re-election in 2026. So if you are interested in supporting me through my re-election, my website is ortizforaz.com.
Analise, there are 2 things that I want to reiterate too, that when I spoke in the beginning about action and activism, numbers count. If we get 2 emails to Peterson, Hoffman, and Bollock, that's nice. But if we get 200, that makes a difference. So please write and oppose this. And oh gosh, there are 3 people who need to hear from Democrats anyway. But this is horrendous. And as you said before, it's not just locking you out. It's every person, man, woman, and child in Glendale and Maryvale who does not have representation. And that is as un-American as we can get.
Yeah.
So please spread the word. This program is going to be posted on Facebook. We have 3 superb sections in our program today. Please share with anybody that you can get that YouTube link out to. And Analise, thank you for your courage, for your tenacity, and we are with you 100%. And we will write, email, call for a better solution for you. Thank you.
Thank you all so, so much. I can't express how much it means. And Nora, just to answer your question really quickly, absolutely, I'm going to continue doing the work that my district elected me to do. I'm still doing it right now, which is why I was late to this meeting because I have so many meetings on my calendar, but they are not going to stop me from showing up for my community and for doing what the people elected me to do, which is to stand up against authoritarianism and to protect people's civil rights. So thank you so,
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much again
Stay
for
strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
you too, Analise. Okay, so there you have it. Ways to resist. You can support voter choice Arizona. Spread the word about it so more people understand how strong their voice could be in elections if we went with that. You can support Terry Ruiz, again, that unique combination power of a passion for public school and administrative experience that makes her perfect to be the shield for public education. And Analise Ortiz, please write those letters. And you can just Google azleg.gov or just Arizona Legislature. You can click on the roster and your email will automatically go to those three. Thank you so much for being with us. We will be back in October and look forward to seeing you October 28th. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
And thank you all from Linda. Blessings for the month. Everybody stay strong.